Good evening. My name is John H., and I'm an alcoholic. In this Code Blue Big Book Action Seminar, we're going to go through the recovery section of the Big Book line by line. We are going to take the action that our founders and the first 100 people who recovered say that we must do to overcome this seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. Now, I don't claim to be any kind of a big book and 12-step guru or expert, not by any means. I am no kind of deep spiritual advisor. I'm just a simple drunk who was almost dead from the disease when a couple of recovered alcoholics reached out their hand to me and said, "We have a different way." Now, this is based on the Canadian method pioneered by the Golden Slippers, but I also borrow heavily from the Joe and Charlie Big Book Weekend tapes, from Chuck C., from Clancy, and from all of the giants upon whose shoulders we are riding. Now, I would love it if you could grab a couple of friends and listen to these sessions together, because working the steps with other people is always more powerful than trying to go through them alone. So you're going to need a large print big book, a highlighter, and a pen, and some willingness. And as you guys will see, we open every session with a set-aside prayer to more open our mind to be more receptive to this information. Thank you so much for listening. Good evening, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, John.
During the 1950s, a man by the name of Max C., now dead, started a group in Winnipeg, Manitoba called the Golden Slippers. The group was a back to the basics of the big book kind of group, especially for those people who could not stay sober for any length of time. The group took a bunch of chronic slippers and walked them through the steps, taking the action exactly as laid out by the first 100 men and women who wrote the basic textbook Alcoholics Anonymous. This is not your typical thanks for sharing kind of AA meeting, nor is it like any seminar. Participants are asked to do all 12 steps as laid out in our basic textbook. One or more of the people who have done this work before will be guides to lead you through the instructions in our basic textbook using a dictionary published at about the same time as the book Alcoholics Anonymous to help us better understand the directions as they were written by the first 100 men and women. We ask every participant to commit to the entire process. Though we read and study the AA Big Book, this group is not limited to members of AA. We who have participated in these groups before have come to understand that these sessions make us much better sponsors. We can now lead people through the steps exactly as given to us by those who have gone before, unfettered and unchanged. In addition to being a boot camp for sponsors, we also feel this is especially valuable to those who have been through some sort of treatment or rehab and have been in effect left off at step 3 or 5. Recovery requires that we do all 12 steps. We recover in AA by taking the steps, and if we don't take the action as described in our basic textbook, we might not recover. These study and action sessions will guide you through the steps precisely as the first 100 men and women laid them down. These are back to the basic sessions, accepting the simple kit of spiritual tools that's been laid at our feet. Let's open up with a set-aside prayer. God, please let me set aside everything I think I know about sobriety, life, and you, so that I may be open to a new experience. Amen. All right, welcome everybody. I've also, I've been getting texts. There's going to be more people. I hope there's a lot of people that seem to have the whatever's going around, so flu or whatnot. I do have a phone list that I've been passing around too. If everybody gets their name and number on there, I'll wait one more week and then I'll make some copies, because if you guys, when we get up to the third and fourth step, if you have any questions in the past, people will call each other, with questions about what we're doing. And hopefully, in order to go through this work, it's also advised that everybody has a sponsor. So that's something that in another week or two, I'll ask everybody who doesn't have a sponsor to raise their hand. So go ahead and get one now. Otherwise, like as I said, like in the first time I went through, they had to assign me a sponsor. Now, a friend of mine was talking with this other guy that went through Code Blue, I think 2 sessions ago, and he did his 5th step, and he relapsed, and he'd been out drinking for several months. And he was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, I did everything, and I even did John Henry's Code Blue. And, and of course, I remembered him well. And this was a fellow, and he you know, because of work, he came in late to several sessions, but he also missed several sessions. And you know, it says if you are, you know, to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And this guy had missed so much stuff that that actually he did not do the Code Blue. He simply didn't do it. You know, and I texted him and I invited him to come back. You know, and I said, look, you know, if I guaranteed him, I said, if you show up on time for every session and you go to every session and you do absolutely everything, you know, that the book tells us to do, I guaranteed him that he would have the same experience that I would, you know, and I never heard back from him. But I wanted him to let him know that, because there are people, they say, oh, I did the steps. Well, you know what? There's 111 musts in this book, and I mean, unless you go through and you do absolutely everything it says, then no, you haven't done it. And I mean, I used to say, well, that's ridiculous. I don't have to do that. Well, what if that's the one thing that's going to save my life? Right? I mean, I'm going to do, and the way I look at the instructions in the book today is I'm going to do absolutely everything it says, exactly how it says to do it, because I want to have the same experience that the first 100 people had, you know, which was sobriety and a good life. So last week, and are there any new people that weren't here last week? I know, Andy, you are. Anybody? Okay. So I've got the paperwork from the first session, and you get these nice folders here. There we go. Give that to the young lady back there, and green, and oh, you got it. Who else? Andy. Yeah, and over here. There you go. Pass that over. All right. I'm just gonna real quickly, guys. I'm gonna go over what I handed out last week. I know we ran out of time. This, you know, I talk about a dictionary at the beginning. These are just words that they feel have changed in meaning enough. And when we get to them in the book, I give you the definition. But there are some words they feel have changed in meaning enough that they made this little dictionary up from 1939 to now. So that's our dictionary. So we actually do have it. We've got the Big Book Goals as another sheet, and we kind of did this when we did the contents, right? So right now, you know, Doctor's Opinion, and next week Bill's story is going to be on the problem. Now, throughout the whole book, the way Bill writes is he is going to tell us what the problem is, he's going to tell us what the solution is, and then he's going to give us the action necessary for recovery, or the actions that are necessary to get that solution. And all through the book, that's how he writes. So goal 2, the solution, we're going to get in chapters 2, 3, and 4. Now, the actions that we need to do in order to get that solution, we're going to get in chapters 5, 6, and 7. Right? So that's that little sheet of paper. Obviously, we have the syllabus, if I can remember from college. It's been so long, but this is basically what we're going to do. And then I also handed out some prayers. You know, I really had never prayed much at all, and my sponsor, when they finally assigned me one, he said, you know, he said, I want you to hit your knees in the morning, whether you believe or not, and I want you to read through these prayers. And, you know, you make it through the day sober. He said, I want you to hit your knees again, and I want you to thank God for a sober day. And I didn't know. I mean, I was so miserable and desperate, I was willing to do anything, so I did it. And I don't think there's any problem with repetition or reading these. I think that no, just the fact of getting down on my knees denotes that I'm willing to try to live my life differently. Now, there's one in here that is a resentment prayer. We're going to get to that when we get to step 4, but I just have it on there for you. And then lastly, we have this road chart to decision. Okay, this road chart to decision, right? So I think my first treatment, I was maybe 24 years old. I had reached bottom, and I went to treatment, right? And I even started going to meetings, and I did this over the course of the next 20 years. I would go to treatment, and I would start going to meetings. So I'd say, yeah, step 1, man, I'm powerless over alcohol, you know, and step 2, I wasn't even really sure what it meant, but I thought that it had something to do with God, you know, and I thought that I always took step 3, so I thought I did steps 1, 2, and 3, but never in my life until about 5.5 years ago did I turned the correct direction direction. All these other times, and I can't just countless, I would do steps 1, 2, 3. I would disbelieve, continue drinking, and insanity and thinking about suicide. That was my MO. This last time I took the other direction, and I said, you know what? I'm going to make a decision just to do the rest of these doggone steps and see what happens, because my life's kind of been horrible, and I was 49 when I sobered up. So I took the other 48, pardon me. I took the other direction, and the first time I went on to the rest of the steps, my life changed, and it got remarkably better, and it actually happened very quickly. They say a spiritual awakening happens slowly, but for me that happened over the course of my first Code Blue, which was 4 months. I think that's rather quickly, actually. So when I started doing the actions, things turned around in a hurry. Now that sheet that I gave you today, we're going to get to that in a little bit. So today we're gonna look at the doctor's opinion. We're gonna find out what the problem is, right? And I got to think that alcoholics over the last 80 or 90 years have got to be the luckiest alcoholics that have ever lived, because by God, we've got a place to go. That's the meetings, and we've got the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's when we get together and we're around our own kind and we share a common problem. But we've also got a program that we can work to turn our lives around and to change who we are, or rather, I like to say, to become the people that we really are once we get rid of all the crap, all the ice that's around our heart that's been killing us for years. So we're very lucky. So alcoholism has been around as long as man has had alcohol. And I Googled it a few days ago just for the heck of it, and I'm not sure, but I think it was 6,000 or 8,000 years ago they started fermenting stuff, and so it's been around a long time. Alcoholics have been around just as long. So I've got a Chinese proverb that I believe is about 4,000 years old, right? And you probably have heard this before. It goes, a man takes a drink, the drink takes a drink, the drink takes the man. That's 4,000 years ago. So yeah, that kind of describes what happens to us. Now there's another one. One of the oldest records of human history is the Bible. So I'm going to read something from Proverbs, and this was written by a fellow called Solomon. And, perhaps somebody said, hey, Solomon, what's up with those drunkards that we see that keep doing the same thing over and over again? Solomon, you know everything. What's going on with these guys? Here's what he wrote, and this is in Proverbs 23:29, if I said that right. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eye? They that tarry long at the wine. Okay, back then they didn't have the hard stuff, so they all drank the wine. You will be as one who stoopeth in the midst of the sea. Man, remember like when you're on your bed and the world is spinning around and you're staggering, you can't walk straight? Or that sleepeth at the top of a tall mast, right? You're swaying back and forth. You will say, they have beaten me and I felt it not. I used to wake up and I go, my God, I got a black eye. Where did I get that from, right? We got these wounds, we don't know what they happened to. And thine eyes shall behold strange women, right? Yeah, I used to wake up in bed with somebody, I didn't know who it was. And thine heart shall utter perverse things. Here's the best part. They will arise in the morning and seek it yet again. Almost a perfect description of an alcoholic. And that's from maybe 35, maybe even longer. I'm not exactly sure. So we've been around for a long time. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go to the doctor's opinion. Hold on. I got a little bit of reading here yet. When they started writing the book, okay, Bill, Dr. Bob, Bill Dotson, and the first 40 people, they sobered up and they decided to write the book. Now, they knew Dr. Silkworth, right, because Bill had gone through 3 treatments with him at the town's hospital. And they said, Dr. Silkworth, can we use your ideas of the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind in the book? And we're going to talk about those today. And would you write some of it? And Dr. Silkworth said, yes, you can use my ideas. Yes, I'll write some of it, but don't use my name. He said, you can only call it the doctor's opinion. He said, because I cannot prove it, and if they find out it's from me, they're going to drum me out of the medical profession and I'll never be able to work again. Right? Because everybody up to this time, Dr. Silkworth called it an illness. For the 6,000 years up to that point, everybody said, you have weak willpower. You're a moral failure. You're sinful. You're lazy, right? You just can't get it together, right? That's what everybody told us. So this is the first time that anybody ever said, hey man, I think this might be an illness, right? So, but he wouldn't let him put the name in there. So my reproduction, when you look at it, it says very truly yours, and his name is not there. Now by the second edition of the book in 1955-56, the American Psychiatric Association came out and they said, yes, alcoholism is an illness, it's a disease. And then, of course, Dr. Silkworth said, go ahead and put my name in there now. I was right all along, right? So we're going to have his name in the second, third, and fourth editions. All right, so let's go to the doctor's opinion. Let's see here. So that is on page, in the fourth edition, XXV, Roman numeral 25. Okay, so at the top of the page, before we start reading, let's write a couple of things. Write this book written by first 100 people. Okay? Or just book written by first 100. And so anytime you see the word we in the first 164 pages, it's not talking about alcoholics today or scientists or anything else. It's talking about the first 100 people who wrote the book. Now, Bill Wilson was the primary author, but he submitted stuff to the first 40, and then when more people sobered up, to the first 100. And he had to submit stuff and get approval before they could put it down. So it's always referring to the first 100 people who sobered up and turned their lives around. And then underneath that, I want you to write, we are in a fellowship. We're in a fellowship. That's the meetings, the Perkins, the coffee, the going over to people's house and having fun, coming over for dinner, doing stuff like that. We are in a fellowship. We work a program of recovery, right? So we work a program of recovery, and that's the 12 steps. So people confuse it. They confuse the fellowship, which is going to meetings, with the program of action, and they're two totally different things. They used to be the same. Back in 1939 and 40, they were the same, but they changed over time. So we work a program of recovery. We're in a fellowship. We work a program. Okay, so we, again, I want you to circle that first word, we. We can do what I can't do. Right? We can do what I can't do. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery. So above plan of recovery, write 12 steps. That's what the plan of recovery is. It's not 90 meetings in 90 days. Now, 90 meetings in 90 days is going to help support us while we do the work, right, and have the life-changing experience. But going to meetings alone, I discovered, and it took me 20 years to figure out that wasn't going to do it for me. I was a very slow learner. The plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from the medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. So again, we're going to write Dr. William D. Silkworth, right, and Towns Hospital. He was at the Towns Hospital. And again, we said last week how he had 50,000 alcoholics come under his care at that hospital. So this guy, that's where he developed this theory of the allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. Okay. Dr. William D. Silkworth, Towns Hospital. To whom it may concern, and you can write 1939 right in there, because that's when he wrote it. To whom it may concern, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient, above patient, right, Bill Wilson, who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. Highlight hopeless, and then in the margin write beyond human aid. Beyond human aid. And I mean that, that helps me to understand why meetings alone weren't enough for me, because the meetings are run by people. The doctors I saw were people. People in the treatment centers and the detoxes, they were all people, right? In the course of his third treatment, underline the word third. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. So any of you people that have been through multiple treatments like me, don't feel bad. The guy that wrote the book had to go through 3 treatments before he was able to discover this and get sober, right? So I mean, I've seen people. I had 8 or 9. I've seen people upwards of 20. And you know what? I don't care how many. You got to go in and get detox so you can do the work. A human life is worth it. It's absolutely worth it. As a possible means of recovery. Let's highlight the next 3 lines. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. Stop highlighting there. And then off to the left, we're going to write passing it on. Passing it on. Okay? At the bottom of the page, we're going to write 2 little things. We're going to write, and this has to do with passing it on. Number 1, identification. Identification equals sharing of stories. Identification equals sharing of stories. And 2, strenuous work, one alky with another. Those were 2 factors that Bill discovered early on that were vital to staying sober and to helping the newcomer. Identification, sharing of stories. 2, strenuous work, one alky with another. And we circled that must. Off to the right, we're going to write 111 musts. And I'll be honest, I've never counted them. But, there's we had to, there's must. So 111 musts. And then underneath it, write actions, right? So there's 111 times in here they're telling us that we must do something, right? We have to do it. And I know they call this a suggested program of recovery, but when you read the instructions, they're telling us that we've got to do it, or we're not going to get it. Must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. Circle that word recovered. There it is again. I can't tell you the number of times, and it's always an old duffer I run into, and he says, "You can't recover from this disease." And I say, "What are you talking about?" When I came here, I was miserable, desperate, full of fear. I couldn't stop drinking, and when I started drinking, I couldn't control what I had. I was physically sick. I was morally bankrupt. I wanted to kill myself, and absolutely I have recovered from that condition. You're goddamn right I can recover from this. Now, I'm going to say that I'm never going to be cured, right? And if I ever take a drink, I'm going to trigger. It's all going to start over again. But I absolutely have recovered from that hopeless condition of mind and body that caused me to want to kill myself, right? So we can recover, but we're going to discover that there are things that we've got to do on a daily basis to stay recovered, and we're going to discover that we're going to want to do them, right? They're not chores. They're a much better way of life. I personally know scores, and if you remember from the Gettysburg Address, that means 20s, scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. Right after that, we're going to write rigorous honesty. Rigorous honesty. Very truly yours, there is his name, William D. Silkworth, M.D. I mean, how prophetic was that, right? Growth inherent. Thousands, let's talk about millions. The physician who, at our request, gave this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must, circle must, believe. And then highlight the next little phrase, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. So highlight that little phrase, and off to the left we're going to write twofold disease, physical and psychological. Twofold disease, physical and psychological. Twofold disease, physical and psychological. So guys, this is the first time in history that somebody is saying, hey man, there's something wrong with the body, right? There's something wrong with the body as well as something wrong with the mind. So because again, it's always been sinful, weak willpower, moral failure, lousy, no good loafers, moochers, right? So for the first time, we're being told that this is actually an illness. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality. Underline full flight from reality. And next to that, we're going to write denial. Denial. Or we're outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent. In fact, to a considerable extent with some of us. But we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. Now remember, they didn't have this proven for about 20 years after this. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy, circle that word allergy, we're going to talk about that. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may, of course, mean little. But as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic, underline altruistic, and right above it, write no monetary gain. No monetary gain. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization, underline hospitalization, and next to it write detox, for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. Okay, and again, I found that to be true. You know, you try to, and when people tried to 12-step me when I was drunk, forget about it. When I try to do that to other people, they're drunk, it simply doesn't work. So typically, I like to get to them when they're extremely hungover and they feel that their whole world is crashing around them and they're desperate and they're out of options and they're miserable, because that's really the only time that we alcoholics seem to become willing to do it. So, you know, detox, back in the day, for doctors to get patients, you know, back in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and even 60s, doctors had to lie to get alcoholics into the hospitals, right? Because everybody thought that it was weak will and it was sinful. So they had to lie to get them in there to get detoxed. And doctors did not like working with alcoholics. No doctor likes working with alcoholics because we never do, well, number one, we never tell doctors the truth, you know, and number two, we never do what the doctors tell us to do, right? And, you know, the main reason is we don't pay our bills, right? So doctors don't like working with us. So they had to lie to get the alcoholic into these institutions. The doctor writes, the subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount. So paramount means most important. I mean the most important. Paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country, treating alcoholic and drug addiction. And again, that's the town's hospital. There was, therefore, a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of, circle it, moral psychology. Okay, so moral psychology, all that means, it simply means values or ethics. Right? Values or ethics. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics. Right? And I mean, when I see that, I remember how I was running around and lying and cheating and stealing and doing whatever I needed to do to get my alcohol and drugs, right? Some sort of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties. Highlight these 3 words: beyond our conception. Beyond our conception. So, next to that, we're going to write spiritual solution. Spiritual solution. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book, we're going to write Bill W., right there. Bill W. came under our care in this hospital, and while here, he acquired some ideas. So underline some ideas and draw a little arrow over and write starting of steps. Starting of steps. Which he put into practical application at once. And circle at once. Okay? And then in that little margin, we're going to write 3 days sober, Bill started 12-stepping. 3 days sober, Bill started 12-stepping. Now, when we read Bill's story, we're going to see that he had a spiritual experience, right? Something that happened suddenly and quickly. He got zapped, right? Most of us are going to have to do the work, and it's going to be called a spiritual awakening that takes place over time. But we're going to read his story next week and see what happened to him. Later, he requested the privilege. Underline that word privilege. He requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here. And with some misgivings, underline some misgivings, we consented. So number one, that word privilege, whenever people allow us to come into jails and treatment centers and detox centers, that's a privilege that we have. And as I've come to understand, that's a necessary privilege for me to continue to grow as a human and also to maintain my sobriety. So, and there, with some misgivings. So here we've got a guy who was a babbling crackpot, who was a hopeless alcoholic, right? And all of a sudden, a couple days later, he says, my God, I've got the answer to everything. So these doctors we're going to let a crackpot talk to some of these people in the hospital? And it says, with some misgivings, we consented. So what they did is they allowed Bill to talk to the hopeless cases. The cases that they thought there was no chance for anything to make these men better. Those are the ones they said, okay, Bill, go talk to those guys. Right? Those are the ones they let him talk to. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness, underline that word. People say this is a selfish program, but to me, I mean, I have to practice. I have to practice giving of my money and giving of my time. I don't know why they would call this a selfish program. I think it's an absolutely unselfish program. The unselfishness of these men, as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit, is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. So Dr. Silkworth, he's seen a lot of guys die. I mean, when when people got committed for alcoholic insanity, a lot of them had wet brain, and what they would end up doing, they'd get them to the nut house, they'd strap on a diaper. I mean, that was it, life over, right? So Dr. Silkworth saw this over and over and over again. wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power, circle power, and highlight to the end of the sentence. In the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Okay, so every time Bill uses a word as a deity, he capitalizes it. So at the bottom of the page, let's write 30 synonyms for God in the book, at least in the portion that we're going to read. So there's going to be 30 words that Bill uses as God in the book, and he's going to capitalize all of them. So hopefully we'll circle most of them. The power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. So what he's doing right there is the power, well, that power is God. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor. So underline physical craving for liquor. And we're going to write detox next to it, but we're also going to write allergy. We're going to write allergy. And we're going to look at that sheet I handed out in just a little bit. Right? So in the context of the big book, when they use the word crave, that means that we've taken some alcohol and ingested it into our body. As soon as that alcohol gets into our body, alcoholics are going to have a physical craving for more of the same. So if people that say, I came into AA and I didn't drink, but I craved a drink for years, that in the context of the big book, no, you can say you wanted a drink, you wished you could take a drink, you needed a drink, but in terms of the big book, when they use the word craving, that's after we've introduced alcohol into our body. And this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. Circle that word again. Circle that allergy word. All right, somebody's going to have to tell me where we are when I'm done reading my notes here. So, let's talk about that word allergy a little bit, okay? How in God's green earth can I be allergic to something that I'm drinking a quart of a day, right? How can I be allergic to that? I'm not allergic to it, right? It's killing me, but I'm not allergic to it. So let's look it up in the dictionary, right? Usually a physical manifestation brought on by a food, beverage, or substance. Right? So again, how can I be allergic to something I drink a quart a day? I don't got a rash, watery eyes, runny nose, or dysentery. Maybe I have a little bit of that depending on how much I drink, but not like hay fever. So, one definition of allergy is an abnormal reaction to something. An abnormal reaction. So I've got to ask myself, what's normal and what's not normal? Okay, I didn't know because you know what? I drank with people who drank like me. I'd go to a Vikings football game. I thought everybody there was drunk, right? We'd get ready to go out to the bars and we'd drink a couple cases of beer before we went out. I thought everybody did that. I didn't know what's real and what's not, right? Because if you didn't drink like me, you didn't drink with me. So I don't know what's normal. I do not know what's normal. Here's what I found out normal is. A social temperate drinker, they come home from work, they're tired, tense, wrought up from the day's work. They have a couple of drinks. They get a relaxing, comfortable feeling. They have dinner, and they don't drink anymore that night. That's not how I drink, right? That's a normal. I don't feel that way when I drink. So they have a couple of drinks. They get a slightly tipsy, dizzy, out of control feeling. They don't like that feeling. They don't like it, and they stop drinking. And you've all been out with them. Try to get them to drink more. Have another drink. Come on, man. You've only had 3. Have another one. No. I can feel this already. I don't want any more. No. I'm starting to feel sick. I'm starting to feel nauseous. 2 or 3 drinks is all they want. For regular people, alcohol is a downer. It's a sedative. It's no more. They get enough every single time they drink. They get enough. Now for me, alcohol is an upper. They get a tipsy, out of control, let's go to bed feeling. I get an exciting, in control feeling. I wake up. I can get home after a 12-hour day. I'll be beat. I'll be exhausted. I'll drink a half pint and all of a sudden I am ready to roll, right? I wake up. They have 2 drinks. They want to go to bed. I have 2 drinks and I want to go to the bar and meet women. I want to go and drink more, right? So we react different physically and mentally, and they will not drink more, right? They say, no, I don't want any more. I'm gonna get sick. So alcohol is a toxic substance, right? Regular folks, their bodies, if they drink too much, they want to puke it out. My body demands more. So an abnormal reaction, right? 90% of the folks have a couple of drinks. That's it. We 10%, right? We want more. That's an abnormal reaction. That's what allergy means. You can't see it. You can only feel it, and only alcoholics feel it, right? So I mean, I remember I go over and I visit my sister, right, and I'm sober, right, and we sit down and she's got a good bottle of wine. I don't mind if they can drink around me. It doesn't bother me at all anymore, right? So she makes a big production. She opens up the wine. It's a really good bottle and gets out her nice thing and she pours the and she sniffs it all, right, and I'm just watching her, right. Then she sets the glass down and we start talking. She didn't even take a sip. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? That's what normal people do. And she'll have like a glass, she'll have that glass and she'll pour another glass as we're eating dinner and she'll only drink half of it and she'll leave the second half there. I'm like, what the heck, right? But that's what normal people do, right? There was a guy, I was up north and on a fishing trip and we got out and we stopped at this restaurant for lunch. I think it was about 11:30. And the waiter, I could see, he looked like he was all hungover. Maybe he was still a little bit drunk. And he goes, hey, you want a shot of tequila? And I looked at him and I said, I'd love one, but I got to be to work in 5 days. He didn't understand it. If I take that drink, I ain't going to make it to work, right? I ain't going to make it. So let's look at our... Today we know that the doctor's opinion is true. Now let's get this sheet out. Does everybody got this? Now this, I want to let everybody know this is not AA approved material at all. It is not AA approved because AA stays out of controversy, and AA might think, hey, the reason that we have the allergy might be a controversy. But I feel that this is so important. I got this from Joe and Charlie. This is so important that we've got to look at it. So let's look at the disease concept of alcohol. Let's look at the top of the page in the middle. Okay, 9 people drink safely. They are at ease with alcohol, right? They've got enzymes in the body which break the alcohol down. It breaks down to acetaldehyde, then they break it down to diacetic acid, and then into acetone. Okay. And then it dissipates through the urinary, respiratory, and intestinal tract, right? So they metabolize it, and in the final stages, it becomes simple carbohydrates, sugar, energy, empty calories. If they drink 1 ounce per hour, they cannot get drunk, right? And most social drinkers do not drink more than 1 ounce per hour, right? And if they do drink more than 1 ounce per hour, watch out, because they're gonna be throwing up on you. But they simply don't do that. Now let's go to the left side. That's us, right? They don't drink safely or are at dis-ease with alcohol. So we have enzymes of insufficient quantity and quality to get rid of the stuff. So again, we break it down to acetaldehyde, then to diacetic acid, then it turns into acetone. But we cannot get that acetone out of our body like the other folks can, right? And it is proven today that acetone, when it stays in the body, causes an actual physical craving for more of the same. Non-alcoholics, they metabolize acetone so fast the craving never occurs. In our body, the acetone stays longer and causes an actual physical craving, which demands another drink. So think about it. We take that first drink, we got the acetone from the first, we want a second one, we take the second drink. Now we got leftover acetone from 2 drinks. We take a third drink. Now where the acetone is building up, our craving gets greater and greater the more we drink, right? So I'm craving alcohol more after 30 drinks than I was after 2 or 3, right? This is crazy, man. So here it is. It's 2 a.m. I'm lying on the floor of the men's room. I just got the hell beat out of me. I'm missing a front tooth. They come up to me and they say, "Sir, can we help you?" And I say, "Yeah, get me another drink," right? That's the way that we drink. And that explains why over the years I never got enough alcoholic. I never got all I wanted. I got more than I could stand. I got more than I needed, but I never got enough. Non-alcoholics always get enough every time they drink with 1, 2, or 3 drinks. Right, so that's the allergy, which is again proven today. So keep that. We're gonna review that sheet one more time at the end. Okay, so back to the book. Allergy. Thank you. And then let's highlight the next 2 lines. That the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. Just highlight that. So that's what we just read about. So off to the left, we're going to write physical allergy can't be controlled. Physical allergy can't be controlled.